Hey everybody, how's it going? It's the Daily Shooter, and today we're going to be taking a look at the best that Primary Arms has to offer. This is the Platinum 1:8x24 with the ACSS Raptor A2 556 reticle. So let's go ahead and take a closer look. Okay, so let's go and talk a little bit about this scope real quick. Now, I will roll in some footage so you guys can see what this looks like up close, and we'll also talk about the rings that I've been using with this scope, which are the Warn Tactical Quick Disconnect Offset rings, which I think is probably the best balance of quality and value. You know, there's definitely rings out there that cost a lot more, there's rings that cost a lot less, but I think Warn does a really good job of offering something that's a good quality but doesn't cost an arm and a leg. So I think a lot of people can get behind these rings, and I've been using Warn rings for years now and always been really happy with them. So we'll talk about that too. Now, I think a lot of people, when they think about Primary Arms, they're thinking about their more affordable line of optics, and they have a good variety of optics. Everything from your 1x magnification red dots, standard red dots, they have red dots with the ACSS reticle, you know, they have fixed powered optics, 3x with the ACSS and so forth, 762x39, 300 blackout, 556, again, a really good variety of optics that a lot of people can afford. This is not one of those optics. This thing comes in at just under $1,000. But I think you're getting what you pay for here. So a lot of optics out there that cost a lot of money, a lot of times you're getting what you pay for, but then they're kind of upcharging it even a little still, right? You're paying for the name or something else. With the Primary Arms Platinum, you seem to get the best of pretty much everything, but still falling just short of that $1,000 mark. So again, I would compare this to scopes that cost 2 or 3 times as much and say that in some ways it might be even a little bit better. So it's a pretty nice looking scope right here. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the tech specs, details, and features, and I'll tell you what this thing is kind of all about. Okay, so the Primary Arms 1:8x24 with the ACSS Raptor reticle. This is a first focal plane scope. If you don't know what that means, it essentially means that as you dial through your magnification range, the reticle is going to enlarge in the viewing window. So the nice thing about that is that when you're talking about the Raptor reticle, or the ACSS reticle, excuse me, the ACSS uses a kind of like a modified horseshoe. And when it gets down real small, so when you're using this thing down at 1 power, which means no magnification at all, you end up with what really looks like a little red dot. It's almost perceived as this little red dot, and because it is an illuminated reticle and it illuminates that little red dot, you have a scope that you can use very fast, quick target acquisition. And I gotta say that out of all the scopes that I've ever tested that are variable power like this, that go from 1 to 4, 1 to 6, 1 to 8, whatever the case is, this one right here has probably the truest 1 power that I have seen. So when you dial this thing all the way down, you turn on the illumination to kind of make it look like a little red dot, and let's say you look at a target that's about 5 feet away from you and you have both eyes open, it is the same in both of my eyes. So my naked eye and the eye that's looking through the optic perceive the target exactly the same. I mean, there might be a little bit of offset that I don't see, maybe a fraction of a percentage, but again, with both of my eyes open looking at a target approximately 5 feet away, they look exactly the same size. So it is a very true 1 power. But the nice thing about this particular reticle, the ACSS Raptor, is when you dial this thing up to 8 times, and you obviously have that first focal plane so the reticle gets larger, it's one of the best reticles that you're going to find out there, and I think that's why Trijicon uses the ACSS in a lot of their popular optics as well. So you end up with this sort of modified horseshoe that gets pretty big with bullet drop compensation that's located towards the center, windage and elevation, all sorts of stuff that you can use with this reticle. It's definitely a reticle that you want to learn a little bit about, but it gives that to you in a way that is definitely better for shooting long distance. And you don't really need it when you're shooting up close, so having the ability to have something that's more or less perceived as a red dot I think is really nice as well. Now this is not in MOA, this particular one. I think they do offer it in MOA. This particular one is going to be in mils. So we have these nice large turrets on the top right here. These are not capped turrets, they're exposed turrets. They are fairly big, which is nice because you get a good hold on them. They're audible, they're tactile, they're very easy to use. The adjustments on this one are going to be 0.1, I keep wanting to say MOA, 0.1 mils of adjustment per click. So typically for people who are used to MOA, you're going to find like a quarter MOA adjustment per click. This one right here is going to be 0.1 mils of adjustment per click. And you have a total of 29 mils of adjustment. So what you want to do is you want to kind of cut that in half. Very similar to MOA. So if you have 100 MOA of total adjustment, it means 50 up and 50 down. So talking about 29.01 of mils. Again, you want to cut that in half. And it's a great looking scope. Again, large knobs, easy to use, tactile and audible. And then on the opposite side is where we have our illumination knob. Now, illumination is one of the important things I want to talk about this scope, because I've tested scopes that cost a lot more that are also illuminated, and you cannot see that illumination pretty much whatsoever during the day. With this one, it actually does give you some contrast during the day. So if I turn this on to the brightest setting and I look at a target that's 100 yards away, have it dialed up to 8 power, I can actually see the contrast of the red. Obviously there's a black reticle in here as well, but when it illuminates it to a red, I can see that contrast, and it adds just enough contrast to where I feel like I can get a better shot on my target. So I like being able to use this during the day. As the sun starts going down, obviously it's going to get brighter and brighter, and you'll be able to use this in low light conditions, especially if you're dialed down like a little red dot. You can use it like a bright red dot at that time. But still, you do get some pretty good contrast. Now this has a 34 millimeter tube. I'm a 30 millimeter guy. I've used most of my scopes at 30 millimeter. That's what I like. But the past several scopes that I've reviewed have all been 34 millimeters. And I gotta say, I'm really turning to a 34 millimeter scope, because you end up with a little bit more brightness, you end up with a better field of view, and so better clarity as well. And that's one thing that I've realized with this scope, is that when you're dialed up, even when the sun starts going down and you have kind of a low light situation, you still end up with good light transparency and therefore really good color. And I've been really impressed with it. Now they use Japanese glass, which is what a lot of scope manufacturers use. The Japanese make excellent glass. It's fully multi-coated. It's waterproof, shockproof. It's a very tough optic, but at the same time, the tougher the optic, usually the heavier the optic. And this thing weighs in at just under 27 ounces. So it's not as heavy as, let's say, like a 6 to 24 by 50 or something like that, or even a 3 to 9 by 40. But still, it weighs a lot more than a typical 1 to 8 that I think would be less durable than this. It's about 10.5 inches long, and it comes with some really nice caps as well. These are Butler Creek caps. The back one's going to be a quick flip. We got this little lever right here. Click on that. It flips up your rear cap. Just go ahead and push on the front cap, and they're spring loaded. So they are really nice Butler Creek caps as well. Now, another thing I really like about this scope, and again, this is a review, so I'm not just trying to give you the basic technical aspects of it. I'm trying to tell you things that I noticed about it when it comes to those technical aspects that I think kind of make it stand out. And one thing I really like about this scope is the eye relief, which comes in at just under 4 inches. One thing I noticed about this scope versus others is that you really don't have to move your head barely at all as you go through the magnification range. I've tested some optics where if you start out at the lowest setting and you go up to the highest setting, you have to move your face like a full inch, or maybe even more than an inch, to regain that proper eye relief for that higher magnification. With this one, I would say that you're looking at maybe 1/10 to 2/10 of an inch that you have to move your face in order to regain that eye relief between 1 power and 8 power. That means that there's almost no time wasted at all. If you're looking through this thing and you go ahead and you crank it all the way from 1 to 8, you only have to move your face just a little bit in order to get rid of that shadow and get the proper eye relief. So I think that that's really nice, and again, it kind of speaks to the overall quality of it. Now again, the mount that we're using is a Warn Tactical quick disconnect offset mount. This is a 0 MOA mount. I don't think you need to worry about getting like a 20 MOA mount or anything like that, especially when this is set up for 5.56, because you kind of lose the effectiveness of the cartridge as you pass 600 yards. And when you're talking about a 1:8, it gives you plenty of magnification to be able to see out to the furthest distance that this cartridge is going to be viable for. And so we have a 0 MOA mount. One of the things I like about this mount is that it is the same anodizing color as the scope itself. So it's a nice flat black. It matches the scope really well, so you don't have a scope that's nice and flat like this is, and then scope rings that kind of have this heavy gloss to them or something. They are both very nice flat black anodized, and so it works out really well together. The other thing I like about this particular mount is that the quick disconnect levers are locking levers. So you have these nice large levers, but they lock in, and all you'd have to do is simply push and slide a little lever or a button that's in the middle right there, and it'll allow you to take these off. Now, another thing I liked about these versus some other quick disconnects that I've used in the past is that you don't have to do anything crazy in order to tighten these down or to get them to the proper tension that you want. So some require you to have a special tool to lift and turn and do all sorts of crazy stuff, you know, to adjust the tension as you tighten them down. These don't. They're very easy to tension down, and then once you get your tension correct, you go ahead and you throw these levers over, lock them down, and this thing's not going anywhere. So it just you know, makes for a really nice mount. There are two separate mounts, two separate levers, and then we have our lugs that go through the center right here that match up with the Picatinny rail. So I think it's a really solid mount, and it gives you that cant that you're looking for and kind of throws that scope out there a little bit so that you can still get the proper eye relief with the amount of rail space that you have available. So again, this is the Primary Arms Platinum 1:8x24 with the ACSS Raptor Reticle. I think if you are somebody who has a higher budget, if you're looking for a better scope, if you're looking for something that's still tough, waterproof, shockproof, durable, and you know, gives you everything that you want, and you really like that ACSS reticle, then I have no problem 100% recommending this scope right here. There's a lot of scopes that fall in this category, and so it can be a little bit difficult to pick between each one, but I think as far as durability, it's just as durable and just as nice glass as a lot of the more expensive optics, so I think reticle's probably where it's going to come down. Anyway, I want to thank you all very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Again, you can use my discount code, which you will find on Full30 and my own personal website over at Optics Planet. And again, I want to thank Optics Planet for sending this out for me to test, because it's been a lot of fun. So again, thank you guys very much for watching. I do appreciate it. Check out the new channel if you haven't already, and if you haven't subscribed to this one, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the little bell notification next to it. Have a great day.